Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Johanna. For those of you who are new here, welcome. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some new alcohol markers I found at Target, the Mondo Llama brand, and if that is of interest to you, please stay tuned. Okay, so this first part will be a little bit chatty, and then I'll get into like a little mini review of these markers in comparison to some others that I have. I have been interested in coloring and have started avidly getting back into it late January 2021, so just a few months ago. And as I've been consuming more content here on YouTube, I've noticed a lot of people using alcohol markers, and for the longest time I was just satisfied with using my pencils, but I have found that I really love basing in markers, and I am trying to expand by some of the types of coloring pages that I do, and I thought, well, I'd love to get me some alcohol markers. And then I quickly realized that Amazon, which is normally where I pick up things, for most, or well, at the time, all of the links that I tried, and I must have tried at least 20 different brands, numbers, sets of alcohol markers, they wouldn't sell because I lived in Hawaii, or at least they wouldn't ship here. And so I was on Target. I usually do a drive-up Target order every other week, and they suggested this brand, which is Mondo Llama, and I was looking at it and I realized that one, they had alcohol markers, and two, they actually had them on island. I don't know that there's actually anywhere else that I can get alcohol markers on island, so I was quite intrigued, which made me think that, oh, well, maybe Walmart has. Well, they didn't have on island, but they were able to ship me some ohuhus, which is a funny name. And so I did pick up an 80 set, or an 80 piece set from Walmart. They did ship it here to Hawaii. It took about a week. I believe this was like $43 and some change, and there are 80 markers. And this is actually the set that I got first. But I was still interested in the Mondo Llama. And so earlier this week, I actually went and ordered these and drove up and picked them up. And I definitely have some thoughts. Now, because many of you are probably here because I'm mainly a creative journaling planner type of channel, you may not know what alcohol markers are, but for those of you who are coming from the coloring page side, then you definitely are probably at least aware of it. Now, it does come with 40 colors. Yeah, it was $25 for 40 colors, which I don't think is bad. It does come in this nylon pouch, and where I think it completely outshines the ohuhus, at least the ones that I have, is that, and I'm sure I could take it out if I were clever, which clearly I'm not clever, but this is where I think it shines. If I take a pen from the middle there, it is segmented so that it's in each individual slot, so I know exactly where to put it. Now, that's not so much of a big deal for me. Where it outshines the ohuhus is I did swatch these here. Now, I do know better to assume that just because it's this color on the swatch, it's going to be that color in my coloring book, because paper color is different, but at least it gives me an idea of what I might want to start with in my coloring book. And if I want to look for 85, well, that one's there. If I want to look for 22, and just shout out if you see it. Right there. And so that can be a little frustrating, knowing that one and done, it's always going to go back into the slot. I love that. This Mondo Llama did not come with a swatch list, which is just as well, because probably the biggest con that I have is that there are no numbers or names on the pens. So if you take a look Both the Mondo Llama and the Ohuhus that I have are the basic same construction. So you've got a fine tip and you've got a chisel tip on either end. Now, I wasn't paying attention when I was on Walmart because I believe they actually have the brush tip, but again, I wasn't looking. And so both of them have a fine tip and a chisel tip. Both of them click really nicely. Neither of them post the barrel, so you are working just like this. It's fine because the pen is long enough, but that also means your caps are flying all over creation. The Mondo Llama is more of a triangular pen. I mean, that's a circle, but then the base of it is triangular, and they're both plastic. This one is more of an oval, again, plastic, and this one does not post as well. It won't stay. So that's flying all over creation. But it does have the number at the top, and then on the swatch list, it also has the name of it. Having at least one of those things I find really helpful, and I'll tell you guys why in a little bit. This has nothing. It has nothing on the barrel. It has nothing on the top by way of identifying a color. And for me, that's the biggest con of this set. Now, I have this notebook that I got with something. I don't even remember what it came with, but I did some swatching. And so this here is the Ohuhu. This is the Mondo Llama. These are actually my Tombow, which are water-based, and this is Crayola. Now, I wasn't trying to get the exact same colors for each, but I was just trying to get something that was pretty close so that you can see. For this one, I did swatch another color just because based on the barrel, I thought that would have been more like that, and then on the page it was nothing like it. And then again, that is the yellows that I chose, and I think that's a good range of colors just so that you can see. And where it will make a difference is on the back of the page. Now, the Tombows and the Crayolas definitely have some ghosting on this page. It's a very thin paper, so that's not a surprise. I am surprised that except for a little point right there, there is no bleed through of the Tombows or the Crayolas. Usually because they're a bit juicy, the stops and starts of it can get you a little bit of bleed through like that right there. But with your alcohol markers, they absolutely will bleed through. In fact, you can see on the page behind, they already stained that page as well. But it's only one page worth, even though the bleed through did actually bleed through to the other side. Now, because this is thin paper, I wanted to do a little bit of testing on something that's heavier weight. And so this is 160 GSM paperwork from paper from an Archer and Olive that I have. It's on a bright white, so I like that. This is the Ohuhu, the Mondo, the Tombow, and the Crayola. And yes, it absolutely bleeds through to the other side. So if you wanted to use alcohol markers in your journals, you would just need to take that into account. Either work this in to whatever your design is on the next page, or work on something else and then put that like tape it in, glue it in onto the page that you want to use so that you don't ruin the backside of your journaling page. Now, as for why alcohol markers are so interesting, at least to me, is the ability to layer. So I've chosen 3 greens, light, medium, and a darker one. I don't assume that the color in the pen is actually the same color as the barrel. They have the same problem as Crayolas, where, I mean, that's a nice color, but you can't actually assume it's a fair representation. So that's this one. That's this one. And this is this one. Not too bad, although this one pulls a little darker, I would think. And then let's do the same for these. So we'll use the fine. Definitely thought that one would be a little lighter. And this is the medium one. Again, based on the color, that doesn't seem to be the best representation. And then this dark one. And again, just based on the pen cap, that it pulls a little bit darker than I would have expected. This is coated, so if I do get ink on it, I can just wipe it off. Okay, so if I take this, and it's going to squeak, sorry, and I color in a big swatch. It sort of acts like a watercolor, sort of, in that it lays nicely on itself. If you do that with a water-based pen, and you do multiple layers, it will start to pill at the paper, so it'll start to actually tear up the paper, and it doesn't lay down nicely. Now, because this is a heavier weight paper, oh, well, it doesn't ghost, so that's a good thing, but it also doesn't want to seem to sink in. It actually seems to be sitting on top of the paper. Where alcohol markers shine, and where people in the coloring book community as well as artists like it, is that you can layer your markers on top of each other with some blending. Now, I literally have had these alcohol markers, well, this one for 2 days, but the Ohuhus for about a week. So if you're here for any kind of layering tutorial, you are absolutely in the wrong place. But you can keep adding layers to do a bit of a gradation on here. I don't think I should have used that particular color. And just keep going back with it so that, again, it kind of works like color pencils do with layering. It kind of works like watercolor does, but it definitely works better than what water-based markers can do. So if I do the same, one, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see that it's already starting to tear up the paper. The water in it is starting to tear it up. It also doesn't want to blend, but instead just stay at different colors. And then if I go back with the lightest, well, one, you get all of that guck, and that's basically paper. But also you don't get as seamless as a transition. Again, had I started with the light tone and then the mid-tone and then the dark, that would seem a lot more seamless than it actually does. And when you get this in the hands of people who actually know how to do the blending and the layering with alcohol markers, it looks so beautiful. And I think for me, again, I want to base and I want to see how my Prismas work on top of it. But also for skin tones, I think it'll work a treat. Now let me grab a couple of coloring books so I can show you what I mean. So this is Women's World, a Color by Colors coloring book by Kira Shersheva, and this was done in Crayolas, and as you can see, there is streaking. Now, even if we just isolate a small piece like that, the color does not want to blend into itself, much less have another color blended into it. So you're going to get that streaking. That's just inherent with a water-based pen. For things like the trees in the background, that's okay. I didn't want that on the skin because I knew that something else was available by way of alcohol markers. That's really why I wanted to get some. The only other picture that I've done, and I'm in the midst of with alcohol, is this. Now, as you can see, even if it's a small section, and that's why I showed you the hand, I mean, my blending and my layering is just not great, but the face layer is smooth, and I really like that. You can see that in the hair. There is some, it's not so much streaking as my application is not as even as it could be, I suppose, because this was done in Ohuhus. So you'll get a little bit of gradations, but I actually don't mind that. And if I wanted to, I could come in with a darker marker and do some shading like I did here. Again, I'm not the greatest at it, but I like that I have the ability without having to use my pencils. For here, this was done in the Mondo Llama. I'm loving the colors, actually. This was done in Ohuhus, and this is where the problem I noticed immediately, especially because I got the Ohuhus first, is if I wanted to start something like this. With the Ohuhus, I can write down the numbers of the colors that I'm using because I'm not necessarily using the same number or the same pen for every single orange that's in here. I mean, it's up to me, so I'm going to choose whatever it is that I want to. But if I use the Mondo Llamas, because there is no identifying marks, I need to make sure that I either finish the page or I catch every part of the color for that. Now, this is a really small piece, so that's not that big of a deal. Although sometimes I just want to color for like 5 or 10 minutes, and I don't want to have to worry that I may not choose the same color the next time. So I definitely think that's a flaw in the design, but I really do like how it looks. This is done with a Crayola, and again, you can see that streaks. Now, for something like this that is mandala, more organic, there's not a face involved, I'm okay with the streaking. With the Crayolas, I have the same problem as the Mondo Llamas, because the barrel is not always the greatest indication of what the pen color might actually be. You just sort of go in blind, but so long as you keep using that same color for all of the pieces, then you're fine. Okay, so for my final thoughts, would I recommend these? Yes. And I say that with confidence because even with that problem where there is no kind of indicator of what the pen is, because I don't even need to know what they would call it. Light blue, medium blue, periwinkle, dark blue, whatever. What I would like is something that I could see right off the bat that I could write in what I'm working on, like, okay, number 1, number 7, number 12. So that I always know to come back to that pen. So that I think is definitely a miss. It feels fine in the hand. I don't think these are available in the brush. So depending on what you want to use it for, that can be a con or a pro. Again, not sure what you're going to be using it for. I do like the design of the case. Alcohol markers should be stored horizontally, not like this. And so having something that closes definitely is a plus because I can just stick this into my little cubby there. Having something that has a designated space for each pen, I think is absolutely a plus. Now, if I wanted to, I could just go in and mark these with a Sharpie and just give them a number so that that problem is sort of eliminated. Again, I don't care what they would call this. I just would like some sort of identifying mark. Now, if you look at the color range, it does seems like there's a lot of greens and blues and yellows. There's these 2 purples. There's the 1 pink. I think this one pulls a little bit darker than you would think by that barrel. That color you would think is more like a light sage, but again, until you pen tested it, there seems to be quite a bit of oranges. And I don't know if it's because they're not in sort of a color family that it just seems really random, but it just seems really random. Because I thought that I would have access issues for about a day. I thought this was the only kind of alcohol markers that I would be able to have access to. And so in that perspective alone, I think these are a good value. I don't know if these are marketed towards kids or teens or budding artists, and all the bells and whistles may not be necessary, but for $25 on Amazon, you can find, I think, maybe not Ohuhu's, but maybe one of the other off Chinese brands that can give you more pens for the same amount of money. But again, it is dependent on access of will they ship to you and things like that. I do prefer my Ohuhu's more than this. You might think it's a bit strange that I do have 2 sets, but this I plan to take to work because I do like to color either before work or during my lunch break. But because I had done a search here on YouTube and I hadn't seen anyone talk about these, I just wanted to give you my thoughts. I'm absolutely an amateur, so by no means is this a full-on wear test, light test, blendability test. You saw the train wreck that my blending was. But again, I mean, there are some advantages of using an alcohol pen for certain things, and then some disadvantages for using an alcohol pen, especially if you are looking into doing journaling. I'd love to know what you guys think. Have you guys seen this in your local Target? And as always, aloha.